Uh-oh.
It's time for the Early Bird Special. Bringing you the best stories from the world of sports and sports entertainment. Now, here are your hosts, Sparky and Burdick.
Well, what's going on, Bakersfield and surrounding communities, and everybody watching online on YouTube at the Early Bird Special. This is the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. Sparky, good morning, my friend.
Good morning. Happy Trivia Tuesday.
Happy Trivia Tuesday, my friend. Let them know what they got going today.
We will recap the NBA playoffs. 2 games last night and 4 games today that we'll preview. Somebody got paid in the NFL. We've got some miscellaneous NFL news to wrap up the hour, plus our trivia question of the week. And then in the second hour, we'll have 24KG talk a little wrestling.
Absolutely.
And then we got our buddy Dan Betts, who has a show tonight here in town. If you'd like to check out, he is opening up for the one and only Tom Green tonight.
I will be in attendance as well at the Nile.
We've got a lot to talk about. And if you have any comments or questions, text in, call in anytime, 661-842-2000. Plus, we are streaming at the Early Bird Special YouTube page.
And since it's a Tom Green Tuesday, text in as well. What's your favorite Tom Green movie? Or at least your favorite Tom Green character, I guess is the best way to put it. Personally, every time I think of Tom Green, all I could think of is him playing, or the character he played in Road Trip, when he played the really weird...
well, he plays well.
Yes, he does. The really weird roommate of the guy trying to feed the snake the entire movie. And then when he finally gets it done, he's like, wow, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
He was
at
expecting.
all.
Is that when he microwaves the big plate of cheese?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. I think that is the same movie. Again, Road Trip. It's been a while since I've watched Road Trip. It's a fantastic film, though. Go check it out if you haven't. But text in right now, 661-842-2000. What's your favorite Tom Green movie? And we'll talk to Dan Betts about that entire show in the 8:30. But like Sparky said, we got to start with some NBA playoffs as well. I guess we had one game and one not so much.
One smackdown.
I mean, what did I tell you, Sparky? What did I text you last night, my friend?
Well, thank you to the Cleveland Cavs for...
That's right. And that's from a Bulls fan for everybody who wants to know.
Banking those Miami Heat.
Absolutely dismantling the Heat. And we don't even need to get into the stats of all of this because, God, it just was an absolute monster of a game for the Cleveland Cavaliers, who came out swinging like Bam Adebayo claimed that the Heat were going to do. DeAndre Hunter stepped in, couldn't miss for the first, I believe, 2 quarters of the game. And honestly, it was just much like the Pacers and what we saw the day before, very much a just unified effort by the entire Cleveland Cavalier team to just put away the Miami Heat in game 4, complete the sweep with a 50-plus point win over Miami. And honestly, I don't know about you, my friend, but I'm just happy to see that Cleveland completed the sweep, because I swear if we went back to Cleveland and had to do the gentleman sweep and wait one more game, I was not going to be able to be happy about that.
Well, that just springs in a question that I was going to ask you about these playing teams. These teams that get through, I guess would be the
play-in tournament, yeah.
The play-in tournament, but I took this comment from Courtney Cronin because it was a good kind of a quick topic to go over, but that we're really not getting much out of these play-in teams after these tournament, and this is what she had to say.
The games have not been good in those rounds, in the 2 rounds to get into the postseason. There's just not been enough of a sample size where you're like, wow, we're getting great games that you can justify. Oh, well, these teams are tired. By the time Cleveland ended up playing Miami was already done for. They're playing a 1 seed. It's the way that the 8-1 matchup goes. Same thing on the other side with Memphis, who was injured at the time with the jaw injury, having to play the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're not going to be competitive series because they're not intended to be. It's supposed to be the cakewalk that you reward the team that has the best record in their respective conference for the regular season. I've never been opposed to making the field smaller. I hate that the NFL does it with the 3rd wild card team and that the NBA feels the need to have 10 teams on the cusp of the playoffs and then have 8 from each conference. It just bothers me when it's why are we trying to water down the competition?
So that's why I wanted to ask you, because I personally think there's more competition, obviously, with the 7th in the playoffs with
Right.
the NFL.
Right.
But I mean, she does make a good point. I don't think they would ever change it because it gives more playoff basketball kind of feel. And with the viewers that they're lacking in the NBA, a lot of people I know that say they're Laker fans or say they're Warrior fans, they watch it this time of the year.
Right.
So I don't think they'll get away from, ditching the play-ins. But she makes a good point because the OKC and Memphis, I mean, that one everybody knew that was going to be a quick one.
Yeah.
And the Cavs and Heat.
Yeah, but again, she answered her own question by saying these are meant to be this way. Now, nobody is saying that the number 1 and the number 8 seed are supposed to be that competitive. There's a reason why we don't see an 8 seed upset a 1 seed very often in the NBA. And this is the same situation. All you're doing is giving other teams a chance to potentially upset an 8 seed or a 7 seed when it comes to the play-in tournament, obviously. And that's
So
what
that
we
just
got
makes
with
it
Miami.
It just makes it that if it ever happened, it's kind of like that Cinderella type story.
Exactly. But at this point right now, like she said in her own statement, that's not what this is about for the NBA. This is really about getting the number 1 seed, probably the easiest, if not the easiest route to get past the first round. Because that's what you should do. You should reward your first overall, teams on each side with some sort of benefit. And that's what you get when you play the 8 seed regardless. And in my personal opinion, when it comes to teams like Miami, when you're a 10 seed and you're able to win your way into the 8 seed, arguably that gives you more momentum going in against the number 1 seed. Now, granted, there are some situations like Memphis where you have people banged up, but as I stated yesterday, Ja Morant, for being banged up, the team plays better without him. So I don't think that's a good argument. And second, it really just the momentum for Miami going forward was there. They honestly felt, at least in the first 2 games, like they could at least hang because they were leading for the majority of the first quarters of 2 of those games. And it wasn't until this game where they got absolutely mollywopped and sent out of the entire gym.
Yeah,
but
the Cavs led by 60 at one point. It was just insane.
It's like Chuck and Shaq said, now you can't stay in the city because you just lost at home in the playoffs by 30 and by 50. You cannot be seen in this city for the next couple months because these fans are not going to like you. But it's just like she said, these are meant to be that way. You're meant to have these number 1 versus number 8 seed not be that competitive so you can reward your 1 seed and get them into the second round. Because that's what the NBA really wants is their best teams in the finals. You don't want the 8 seed. Like, imagine if Miami made it all the way to the finals somehow against Oklahoma City. They would have got ran out of the gym.
Yeah, it would have been
the
same
finals
thing
would have been a Snoresville. They would have made no money, and it would have been an absolute bust. Because no way, no how does Miami beat any of the teams that made it in the West, including Memphis. So you don't want that in the NBA. So for everybody complaining, saying, oh, this wasn't even competitive. So what? That's not what we want from the number 1 to number 8 seed. If you want competitive, go watch the Clippers and Nuggets. Go watch the Knicks and Pistons. That's what's going to be competitive, just as we said from the get-go.
Well, the positive thing you'll see out of this is Miami now knows, which they probably already did know after trading Butler, but they're going to be shopping because they need that scorer. And that's the one thing I was hoping that, being spanked at home like that, that's really going to open up the eyes of
Pat Riley,
GM. Exactly.
Pat Riley is going to be opening the checkbook here pretty dang soon because you need to go out and get somebody like a Kevin Durant, who I hear is being shopped around at the moment at least. But the only team that I see that's really, really like wanting Kevin, surprisingly, is San Antonio.
Cool, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, especially after the retirement that happened yesterday.
So game 2, speaking of Jimmy Butler, he did return, which I was not expecting. And it was more of, I shouldn't have listened to Draymond because Draymond was painting the picture like this kid couldn't walk.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of that was a little bit of, ruse to get people to believe he wasn't going to play and plan on him not playing. So.
But he converted 3 free throws with 58 seconds left, grabbed that game clinching rebound with 4 seconds left, and finished off the game with 27 points in his return from the pelvic injury and the 109-106 win. Now Golden State's up 3-1. So I'm going to ask you, like I asked you yesterday, Is this one over?
Yeah. I mean, again, as I said yesterday, and what was the main topic for me when it came to the Rockets yesterday, Sparky? It was how much Jalen Green was going to contribute. And what happened again? Kid came out away from home, single-digit points. You cannot have that. The only reason this game was even close is because everybody else in the starting five and Jabari Smith actually stepped up and all got into double figures, including Sengun, who had like 26. That kid is starting to look like the superstar of this Rockets team. Jalen Green is sitting there worried about his fingernail polish. Get the ball in the hoop, kid. You're the best scorer on the team. And honestly, had he had anywhere close to a game that we've seen him have in the regular season, they would have ran the Warriors out of the gym in this game. So it's all on my opinion, especially when it comes to the Houston Rockets. It's all on your star, dude. And you know what's funny? Guess who wasn't on the court during the last shot?
Who's that?
Jalen Green.
Of course.
He was nowhere close. They gave it to Sengun. That should tell you all you need to know. Really does. That should tell you exactly what you need to know about the Houston Rockets right now. They don't even believe in their star player. So no, you are not making it past this round. You will most likely go home in 5, if not 6.
Which is Wednesday in Houston.
Yep. And honestly, with Jimmy Buckets playing like he was injured, it's going to be really hard. It really is. Like, I know this game, Green will probably come out and drop 30 because he's at home and he's comfortable. But when they go back to Golden State, they go back to San Francisco for game 6, you're going to get run out of the gym again, and you're going to get shown exactly why your floor is so much lower. Because that's really the problem with these two teams right now. Or I shouldn't say the problem. That's the comparison in my eyes. They have the same ceiling. Warriors and the Rockets have the exact same ceiling, but your floors are vastly different. One is the Warriors' floor is not that far from the ceiling. The Rockets' floor, in my opinion, way lower. So that's why I believe, this series is done. It's
especially,
over.
I mean, the last 2 games. But going back to the Cavs, now that they are sitting in the second round waiting, as a Cavs fan, which team do you want to see?
Which team do I want to see? I want to see Milwaukee.
Obviously, you want to see Milwaukee.
Milwaukee is another sweep, in my opinion. But the better competitive series would be the Indiana Pacers. And honestly, this might be one of the better series in the entire playoffs. That one might go 7. The Pacers have such a high-powered offense that spreads the ball so much. And like we said, last game they played on Sunday, 8 guys in double figures. Now, granted, that's a franchise record, so the likelihood of that happening again, probably minuscule. But 5 guys in double figures, that's almost on a regular for them.
Yeah, and they're playing a beat-up Milwaukee. So
true.
We'll take this break, and then we got 4 games on the calendar today. And some trade rumors going around before even the series is over. Plus, somebody retired yesterday. We'll throw in that. Plus, much more. We did get a text. Do you want to get that before we go to the break?
Let's hear what the text said real quick.
The text said Giannis to Houston.
Ooh. See, but what would they have to give up for him? You would have to give up Sengun, Jabari Parker, something of that nature, plus a couple draft picks. I like the move. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like he ends up somewhere that actually needs a superstar. Maybe the San Antonio situation, because I see that happening more than Kevin Durant.
Well, let's dig into that because I know that's the rumor today is this the last game for Giannis? If they lose tonight, is that the last time you see him in a Bucks uniform?
Might be the last time you see Doc Rivers in Milwaukee as well. Just saying.
We'll have that and much more. Text in 661-842-2000 right here. The Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. No, it's not Sparky. I have some metal for you. Welcome back to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. And real quick, before we get out of the NBA, we got a couple games to talk about tonight as the playoffs continue and get out into full swing. Again, you're going to get a 4 games tonight.
4 games.
4 games tonight. And honestly, probably going to be the 4 more competitive games of the series or of the week, I would assume. But Sparky, go ahead and read some off, and we'll get our thoughts in here.
Well, the first game will be the Bucks traveling to Indiana for Game 5, and they're down 3-1. Tip off 3 p.m.
Naturally,
it's an early tip off.
Yeah,
and
you want this one to get out of there really quick, to be honest with you.
If we see what the Bucks look like the last 3 quarters of Game 4, this is probably a wrap. That's what we've both kind of agreed on. It's probably over.
Indy's an 8.5-point favorite right now. That's a pretty big spread, to be honest.
And then after our show yesterday, they did confirm that Lillard had been diagnosed with a torn left Achilles tendon. He will undergo surgery. I mean, that kid has had
he can't catch a break, dude.
Right, and he was dealing with blood clots, and then he gets in for 2 games,
and had his second game back. He's finally probably feeling a little bit better, and then has a non-contact injury that we all kind of feared was a torn something.
But that opens up the topic, because while Giannis has expressed a desire to stay with the Bucks and win a championship there, the possibility of him leaving is stirring up discussions all over the sports world. And we've kind of went back and forth because, when Lillard was coming back, okay, well, maybe there is some sun over that mountain and they can put this together. So I looked into his contract deal, and he has a player option, but it's not until the end of the 2027-28 season.
Mm.
So it would be, if he wants out, he's going to have to force a trade. And I heard some rumors yesterday. There's some teams. I know you heard about the Spurs. I heard the Lakers, of course. They always mention the Lakers. But
who are the Lakers going to actually? Let's be realistic about this. If it was the Lakers, who are you giving up?
Everyone.
Because you don't have the money. Luka and LeBron, and then you want Giannis too. How are you going to afford all that? And don't you sit there and say, well, we can do it. No, this isn't the Dodgers. This isn't the way baseball works. There's a cap space situation there. You can't afford it. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Sorry, Laker fans.
Well, I've heard both sides. So let's go with Cronin and what she thinks about maybe it is time.
No team, after seeing how Nico Harrison handled the Luka Doncic trade, is just going to send their superstar out of a city without their superstar knowing and wanting it. It's the best for both sides. Giannis won them a championship 4 years ago. He did his part. And since then, they've spent $925 million in luxury tax and player salaries for that roster. And it's gotten them 1 playoff series win since then. They've tried. They've tried. They had to trade away Drew Holiday, to be in Chris Middleton at time, and all these other pieces that they've had. They had to move on in order to keep this roster together. And it's frustrating because they look at what they have now thinking we've had a chance before, but health was never on our side. Giannis last year, it was, if it wasn't a calf, it was a back injury. And then this year with the deep vein thrombosis for Damian Lillard. And then, of course, what happens yesterday, it's time.
Dame may miss all of next year too because of this injury. So I have to agree with her. I know I said last week that I wasn't too keen on the idea of Giannis leaving and that we should slow down a little bit here. But honestly, the way everything is shaping up, the way the series is going, and it just seems like all of that is really starting to come to a head here. I don't know. Like I feel like the frustrations might just become too much for him to deal with.
And Milwaukee. If it was any other player, I would say they would already been talking about it before this game 5. Yeah. But Giannis has got that, quiet, he's more of a homie, like a team type player. And that's the one good thing is I think if he can quiet the noise outside of the stadium, I could see him wanting to stay because that's just the type of player he is. But thinking of his future, if he wastes another 3 or 4 years of his career in Milwaukee and pretty much gets the same result that he's had for the last 3 years, I mean, it might just be time. But this is Terrell Brandon that thinks maybe he does stay.
I would give it one more year and see what happens. He's such a loyal young man. So he's very, very humble. But you can be loyal and humble and still want to get out. And so other teams, I'm sure, will be calling this summer. Depends on what he says during the summer in the media, because you can always get yourself traded if you really want to as a superstar player these days. But I will give it one more year just out for his loyalty, his love for the Milwaukee Bucks. And then after that, I'm sure he's going to make a decision. And sky's the limit for him. Miami, the Lakers, they get everybody. So you never know where he'll go if he leaves.
Again, the Laker idea is ludicrous to me. You would have to give up so much and have everybody take ridiculously low salary cuts. But I don't necessarily like two things. One, I don't know necessarily if there's noise around Giannis when it comes to Milwaukee fans. I think Milwaukee fans know very well that Giannis is the only piece of this team that's actually consistently great. And they won't, like, I haven't heard any fans, period, of the NBA or Milwaukee come out and say Giannis is the problem. So I don't think there's necessarily noise around Giannis. However, I do see what you mean in terms of like the frustrations are mounting. People are questioning the moves that the team's making, which means that they're questioning moves that he may be a part of. And I get that point. But I just think that the frustrations that are mounting with this series alone are really a good way to show, or are a good example of why Giannis would want out.
And then going back to, like you said, Lillard might be out for next
year. So he'd be alone again. And you went out to get Dame, to get a star there, to keep Giannis around. Let's be honest. And the other thing that I don't really care for, too, that everyone's throwing around, and I don't mean to throw you into this as well, but we talk about this as if like he's wasted his career there.
Yeah. Well, it piggybacks because of players like Lillard that were loyal to their team and spent 9-10 seasons in Portland, without anything to really.
But see, it's different because Giannis won there.
Yeah.
Giannis won a chip. He could be happy with one ring. Giannis, to me, seems like somebody that's very humble and really isn't a ring chaser, although I get that that's what everybody's playing for. That's not what I mean. But I don't think that he's going to be like, and then if he does leave Milwaukee, I don't think his next destination is going to be based
like
on, I have to win a chip next year. I don't think that really,
he's not Kevin Durant.
No, and it doesn't vindicate his career or change anything about his career because he's a multi-time MVP. He's one of the best players to ever play at his position. He's a champion already by himself. He led his team to that. Kevin Durant can't say that. He can't. I'm sorry. He tried to do that with Oklahoma City and Seattle, couldn't do it, went to Golden State and won his chips, and has been doing it ever since. Kevin can't say he's led his team. That's why I'm saying that I don't necessarily think it's fair to say that he has wasted his career in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I think that he's actually made himself a household name and is now just looking to find a better spot for him after it's just not working here.
And that could be very well the truth, and maybe a reason why he just stays in Milwaukee and finishes his career there.
Right, which we don't know yet. Obviously, he'll come out and say himself.
If they choke tonight, I'm sure that'll be one of the first questions the reporters will ask him, and we'll relay those comments right after and on tomorrow's show. But going back to what you were mentioning before the break is Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
Do you think if they lose tonight, he's on his way out?
Yeah. I mean, I am so about Doc Rivers. I am lukewarm about the man. I realize his tenure in the NBA. I know how successful he's been and not successful he's been.
Oh, yeah.
But let's also remember, this is now multiple times they have been bounced out of the first round. You have not progressed the team at all. And honestly, we've seen teams this year cut long tenured coaches for less. And I think Milwaukee is, especially if this Giannis situation comes to a boil and they may need to move him, it would only make sense to me if they move on from Doc as well, to try to make some sort of move to lure Giannis back and say, hey, hold on. Like, we'll make some moves for you, and this will help us. I promise. Like, we'll get past the first round this year.
And do you think Doc is done as a coach?
No.
Or do you think
Doc Rivers is a Hall of Fame coach.
Over...
I mean, as much as I love to hate on the guy and say that because he is the only head coach to lose multiple playoff series after leading them and, have all of these negative things on top of the one championship. And I still say that one championship is because of Kevin Garnett, not Kevin Durant.
Well, I just asked that question because do you think that type of veteran coach would be something that maybe a team like Memphis
would benefit from?
Would benefit, especially with players like Ja dealing with, the attitude and.
Yeah, I could see that. But at the same time, it's like people have said, we've heard pundits say it for weeks now that's not what the NBA is anymore.
Yeah, it's the Players League.
Yeah, so maybe we don't. Maybe Doc's done and he retires along with Mike Malone and a lot of these old school coaches because that's just not the style of coaching that works in the NBA anymore.
Well, let's take a break. We'll break down the final 3 games and then we'll throw out the trivia question of the week right here, the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM.
I'm sorry.
This is the closest you get to Spice Girls in the show. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
man.
do love this guy though, on Instagram. Well, both of them actually are fantastic. I can't remember their handles right now.
10-second songs.
Yeah, is that what it is? 10-second songs.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But
I'm gonna have to throw out some love to JR because
he did turn you
had
on to this
share the
morning.
System of a Down Spice Girl mashup or
I
whatever the hell they
just-
call them.
Again, it's the closest you're going to get to Spice Girls on this show. So enjoy it while you can.
Well, the other games tonight, which is game 2, is the one I'm looking forward to. The Knicks will try to finish off the Pistons at game 5 at Madison Square Garden.
No, sir. This is the time.
I think
feel like the
it's over.
Pistons turn it around today.
No.
I know you. I know you're feeling the Knicks right now on Tom Thibodeau, and I realize, and I understand why. But again, Pistons lose that last game because of some.
You see,
I can't say the word.
They came out after that and said, "Yeah, it was a call," and they also missed another call in the third quarter. I was like, "Well, you can go this
again.
You can do
you
this
can
every
go down
game."
the line. That's the point that I love. What Kenny Smith says, like, what does this matter? Why does this matter? It doesn't matter. Don't come out and say anything. We know you missed the call. There's no reason to come out and tell us about it.
Right.
But that's the point I'm making. Detroit gets absolutely, screwed out of the game in Detroit last time. I think they come out in game 5 and steal this one away from the Knicks and go back to Detroit for game 6.
It'll be difficult because the Madison Square Garden is going to be on fire tonight.
Yes,
they're going to be pumping it up.
But see, that's the thing, though. If the Knicks come out flat in any way, shape, or form, those Knicks fans will let them know it, and that's not an easy thing to come back.
Well, I'm gonna skip my lunch break today and hopefully get off at 4:30 and get home and watch this game, because I think this is the game to watch tonight. Followed by the third game, the Boston Celtics get a chance to finish their series as well with the Magic. Tip off at 5:30. Is this one? We've talked about it. I just don't think Orlando has the firepower to make a series out of this. I mean, they were lucky to get a game out of it in the first place. I think Boston wraps it up, and then we'll wrap up the fourth game, which is awesome for it. It's a Tuesday,
so
there's not a lot to watch.
No, TNT got the 2 good games. They absolutely got the 2 good games.
So game 5 between the Nuggets and Clippers with the series tied up 2-2. Is this the only one that's tied up?
This is the only one that's tied up right now. Everybody else is 3-1. And again, this one can go either way depending on which teams show up for both sides. Kawhi Leonard comes out, and as he did in games 2 and 3, if I'm not mistaken, they can most likely take this. And I still say that the Clippers want to win this. I don't want to say this is a must win for the Clippers, but this is definitely one of those games that you really, really want to win, because if you lose 2 games in a row to a team like Denver and give them any kind of momentum, it'll be really, really hard to pull it off in game 6.
And what was this Paul Pierce?
Oh, right. So there's a clip here, and it's kind of saying the same thing here, but that this is all really the Clippers series to win, or really learn from how they can move forward in the playoffs if they are able to win. So let's hear from Paul Pierce.
This is the Clippers series to lose. They look like, with a healthy Kawhi, they look like a whole nother team. Now, I give a lot of credit to James Harden now, because throughout most of the season, he didn't have Kawhi. And I thought when they traded Paul George and Kawhi was going to be out more than half the season, I was like, this Clipper team is probably going to sink. And James Harden kept them afloat all year long. Yeah. All year long, he became an all-star, and he's probably going to be an all-NBA player. And then Kawhi comes back. Now you're looking at this Clipper team like, hold on. Is this a contender? Is this the team? I thought the window closed. I really did thought the window closed. When you trade off Paul George and say, no, we don't want to give you that money. We're going to go with James and Kawhi. You know, I thought they took 2 steps back to take 2 forward. And look at them now. Because what I'm seeing from the Thunder, yeah, they came back from 29 down, but Ja Morant got hurt. If they have to see the Clippers, it might be another exit for the Thunder.
I don't know about that one. I think it'll be a much more much more entertaining series if we get Clippers and Thunder next round. But Clippers got to get past the Nuggets, and I still stand by my thoughts on saying the Nuggets are the team in the most trouble when it comes to the Western Conference because of the way they're playing right now, and it's just not sustainable. However, they can make some magic here in 2 games and potentially knock out, I believe, a better Clipper team. So I don't know. This is going to be an interesting game tonight.
Well, speaking of Chris Paul, I know yesterday they threw out that he was retiring.
Mm-hmm.
And then this morning I read that he's actually not retiring.
This has been something he's gone back and forth with for a while now, though. Like, he really, really wants to win a ring, and I get that. But is Chris Paul the best point guard to ever play? No, but I would put him in the top 5.
I mean, that would be tough too, but
I mean, I in the same context, same conversations as guys like John Stockton and Magic. Yeah, I could see Chris being that kind of a guy. He's been easily the best pure point guard in the NBA since he's been in the NBA.
I was going to say maybe top 5 in his generation.
Yeah. Well, again, who else would be in the conversation besides maybe Gary Payton, Isaiah?
The glove, exactly. I mean, I don't really think of Magic as a point guard because he was more of a shooting guard.
Yeah, but everybody always puts him at the 1 because he was the one who really ran the team back then.
Point.
So I would say that he's more of a point guard. Although I do agree with you, size-wise, he was much more of a 2 or a 3, really, if you want to get down to that part.
Going by, I mean, Stockton definitely.
Oh, Stockton is still, to me, the best of all time because of statistics, but that's just me.
I mean, if you're gonna say running point, I mean, players like Jordan and LeBron at certain times of the year, or Kobe, they all ran point at a certain point of time. But looking at the size of point guards, yeah, he's got to be, I would say, probably top 10. But I would have to go through like the generations.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
without
you
a list
just
in
think
front
of
of
a
us,
team.
it's a difficult say. But I wouldn't put Kobe on this list at all, though, because Kobe didn't pass nearly enough to say that he was a point guard.
Well, he didn't have to.
No, he did not. No, that's not what I'm saying. He played a completely different position. He was a 2 guard, 100%. So I can't say that. Same with Allen Iverson. As much as I love Iverson, Iverson was more of a 2 than
I didn't even think about him. And see, now that opens up a whole nother window of players. But yeah, I mean, other miscellaneous news. I thought as yesterday when I was reading and prepping up, I thought it was done.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was looking up stats this morning, the headline says, no, Chris Paul has decided, he's about to turn 40th birthday is coming up, but he has expressed to intend to continue to play.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he knows it's towards the end of his career, but he is not ready to say he's done.
Now, Laker fans, I would understand and totally see Chris Paul going to the Lakers.
Finally.
But again, now you're going to have 3 guys that want to run point, and that'd be interesting, to be honest with you.
But other news, I saw Shaq.
Yeah, Shaq's
has agreed to become the Sacramento State men's basketball GM.
Again, this is something that's happened across the league a couple times. I think Steph is the GM for Davidson, or at least assistant GM. Shaq will most likely be the actual full-time GM, which is weird. I shouldn't say weird. It's odd to me that he continues to do these things in Sacramento. Like,
that's where his boy's going to be playing.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
His son,
I didn't realize his son was going to be playing at Sac State.
Shakir will be playing at Sacramento State under his new coach, Mike Bibby.
That makes a lot of sense too.
And I was reading into it, and it's an unpaid voluntary job that Shaq's taking. And other players, like you said, Steph Curry, Trae Young is doing the same role at Oklahoma.
Max Crosby obviously is doing it for his alma mater as well.
Andrew Luck did it last year.
Andrew Luck is the actual general manager, though, of Stanford. So he's like that one is an actual full-time job, if I'm not mistaken.
But that's awesome. I mean, I don't understand how Shaq has so much time. He's got
some
his
of these
little
guys,
fingers and everything.
Don't sleep. Like, I genuinely believe that guys like him and Kevin Hart just don't sleep. They don't need to. Maybe because I have heard some people say that like successful people sleep maybe 5 hours a night. That's wild to me.
Do it every other night.
Yeah, and I can't do that. Like, Batman could only micro sleep, and that's not sustainable for people.
Okay, Batman. Other news out of the NBA: they're also discussing a new international format for the All-Star game.
I just read this. I haven't got a chance to actually dive into this, though. Have you actually been able to read this?
It just looks like they're acknowledging that the NBA Players Association and NBC, who they partnered with, do not like the current format, obviously. And they're looking into moving the All-Star game, maybe even every other year, just to, obviously with all the international players that are involved in the NBA, it might be something they look into, especially, since it's it's not working. Whatever
No.
they're doing now is not working.
Basketball has really become an international game as well. So it would make a lot of sense that they do that. I just don't necessarily I don't know. I like the All-Star game in general. I don't think the
Yeah.
All-Star game really does anything.
You can put it anywhere.
Yeah,
It's still
I
going to be
just-
horrible basketball.
Outside of All-Star Saturday, there's really not a whole ton to get excited about when it comes to All-Stars, and it's really annoying.
It's
to
like
me.
if the NFL was, I mean, they've moved the Pro Bowl, 5-6 different times. It's still people don't like it.
Exactly. And you can change up the format all you want, but until you actually create some sort of competition within the game, you're not going to fix anything, because that's really everybody's fucking major problem with the All-Star game is, God damn it.
It does keep it rolling.
Sorry. We had some distraction
Well, the
in the room for a
NBA,
second.
I don't think just like the NFL, the Pro Bowl, the All-Star game, nothing's going to help.
No. And again, until you create some sort of competition within the game, it's not going to matter. It's just going to be the same, shenanigans and BS we get every single year.
We'll wrap up this. We've got your trivia question of the week coming up after this break, plus some NFL miscellaneous news that we've got to throw at you before KG comes in at the top of the hour.
Also, real quick, before we go to break, I have to throw this out as well. We threw this story out there a couple days ago about Elijah Arenas, the son of Gilbert Arenas, who was in a very serious car accident. Where there is an update, he is walking around, walking and talking, and there's no major injuries from the crash itself. We'll give you an update on that too whenever we can.
Right here, the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM.
think you're gonna like how this ends, hotshot.
Say my name.
Your ass better call somebody!
I win! I win!
Time to play the game! Welcome to the Early Bird Special. I'm Sparky, and that's Burdick. And we've got a real easy trivia question for you.
We keep saying that every week, though.
Hopefully somebody can get this right off the bat. I'm looking at you, Grant. Text in your answer to this, 661-842-2000. What does the acronym ESPN stand for? We're on an ESPN station. What does ESPN stand for?
This is a very valid question. I don't think a lot of people know.
Not a lot of people don't. That's why I figured it's a curveball.
It is a little bit of a curveball. We do have KG in the building. I don't know if he has an answer for us. I'm trying to get his screen to actually come
I'm
up.
just as baffled as you guys now.
It's a change up.
Oh, no. We're not baffled. We know the answer. We need people to
I do not know. I'm going to keep it real.
But text in your you can guess whatever. Text it in 661-842-2000.
You might get a T-shirt or something. I know we have a handful of
I've
things.
got some shirts coming. I know we've got some other tickets coming up next week. But while we have the time, because the next hour is going to be jam-packed, we got KG in the building to talk wrestling.
Yes, your local wrestling analyst.
And I've got some questions to ask KG this week. Plus, we'll have Daniel Betts, local comedian, coming in at 8:30 to talk about his show tonight at the Nile Theater, which he'll be opening for Tom Green.
Mr. Tom Green himself.
But NFL news broke late last night. George Kittle, highest paid tight end in NFL history.
And actually, we could ask him this because he's the Niner fan in the room.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
Two of them back to back. We had a Niner fan yesterday.
I feel great. It's deserved. I would exchange that extension and money for some Super Bowl rings. But, hey, he's put in the work, and you get out what you put in.
Second best tight end probably in the NFL, really.
Well, I beg to differ. But honestly, I would have to say congratulations. It's well-deserved. Now, let's put some pieces around him so he can actually get that chip.
Well, when you pay a tight end $76.4 million on a 4-year deal, plus...
Oh, you better be making all the touchdowns. I'm sorry.
Plus, you got to pay, Purdy...
And the rest of your team.
And the rest of your team.
For that much money, you can throw the ball and catch it to yourself.
San Francisco has some weird ways of signing their players. I know everybody needs to get their piece of the pie, but it seems to me like they just kind of throw money around sometimes. And not in a good way. You still have to pay Brock, which is going to be the biggest thing going forward. But
other NFL news, the Steelers signed another wide receiver without a quarterback. Robert Woods signed a 1-year deal, which his career is kind of
Bobby Trees is fantastic. Okay,
he was
fantastic with the Rams. I love him because he's a USC alumni, but he'll at least work his way into a solid part of the rotation here in Steeler country, especially since Pickens will be on the way out, I assume.
I would expect now it's probably just putting the pieces together. And I know we talked yesterday that Dallas is one of the teams that's kind of kept their eye on getting Pickens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just another player that Tech needs to throw to, but Dallas, I don't see Dallas making a big splash at wide receiver because they have other holes to fill, especially with their offensive lining retiring every other.
With as popular as Dallas is, do you see them ever making any good moves outside of Jerry Jones' control?
No.
Well, again, Jerry Jones doesn't give control to anybody else.
So there we go.
All their moves are Jerry Jones moves.
There we go.
Free agent linebacker Isaiah Simmons signed with the Packers yesterday, which is a couple years ago would have been a big splash, but the last few years, I think looking over the stats from last year, he was only on the field 17% of the time for the defense. And then going back to Cleveland, former Steelers wide receiver Deontay Johnson signed a deal with the Cleveland Browns.
Again, at this point, anybody signing with the Cleveland Browns is
Uncle Leroy signed with the Cleveland Browns.
Uncle Leroy,
yes, you can catch him at your local pub.
And they will not exercise Pickett's 5th-year option. Surprise!
Yeah, surprise. Again, I don't know if Pickett's going to be on the roster. I don't know who in this quarterback room is going to be the odd man out. Obviously, you can't get rid of Deshaun. I don't think until at least he's cleared injury wise, but I don't see Deshaun Watson being the starter in Cleveland.
No.
Definitely don't see Joe Flacco being the starter in Cleveland long term.
No, not long
Maybe
term.
the first couple weeks, but the only one I see that's potentially going to be the starter there is Shedeur Sanders. So
what do you think about Shedeur, KG?
Well, since it's been the topic of discussion in the sports realm for the last, 3 days and one infinity stone later, waiting for this man to be drafted and the tales of collusion and whatnot, I think, put him on the field. We'll see how it goes. This, whole new thing where his dad isn't his coach. I want to see how this plays out. I think his talent is definitely there, but it's a big question mark right now.
Yeah.
It's a big question mark.
I mean, with Shedeur being a late round draft pick and they took a quarterback early.
But having first round stats, the way it offsets, maybe this was all put in play by somebody who owes money to a lot of money from the Cleveland Browns organization.
I don't know. Well,
who knows?
All I've heard, especially from people like Boomer, is that owners literally walked into the draft room and said, take him off the board. They don't want him on the team.
And that's coming from Boomer.
Yeah.
It's not just some Instagram kid or.
No, and that's what I'm saying. So, like, whatever he did.
Smell that? It smells like collusion.
No, I don't think it's that far. I think these kids have to remember this is a job interview.
Yes, and you can't show up to a job or a place of profession and have the worst interview, so to speak, and expect to get the highest paying job.
Now, the only part of collusion I could see is that they did this on purpose to keep people talking about the draft into day 3. That's the only reason I could possibly see this being a thing. But outside of them just genuinely saying, I don't want.
What team would have you wanted to see him go to, honestly?
I thought for sure it was going to be Pittsburgh or New Orleans.
Pittsburgh would have fit better to me.
Both two great franchises that would
Pittsburgh, really honestly, with Mike Tomlin, would have snapped him into shape, and Dion wouldn't have even been a second thought.
Do you think Cleveland would have made that trade if they knew that they could have got Shedeur that late?
No.
Because if they would have had Hunter on top of getting Shedeur
and that's
that
all
late,
we heard was that they wanted to put the two together. So no, probably not. But at the same time, if that was the case, why didn't they take him in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round?
They probably were just as shocked as we were that he was still an option.
And they took Dylan Gabriel, a quarterback from Oregon, before him.
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily make a lot.
But the other topic with Shedeur was what we talked about yesterday was the league kind of making an example, because these college players that are making this NIL money.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we make, example out of him. He's the easiest one since he puts himself out there.
Well, he's the biggest one as well because of his dad. Because honestly, if you really wanted to make an example of anybody, you should have did it with Caleb last year.
People, this is a clear example of where nepotism backfires.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Especially when your dad can't keep his face out of the media and can't stop talking about where he wants his son to go.
How many toes does he have left?
8?
I'm not sure. But he's got more money than all of us. So, hey, go buy some new toes.
He could buy some new toes. Well, we got to recap the SmackDown, not only Monday Night Raw last night, which was a good one, with KG right after this break. ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. Welcome back. Early Bird Special Hour 2, and it's time to talk a little wrestling, as we do every Tuesday. Oh, wait, is this the good version, though?
No, it's the only good version.
Darn. I don't like this version. I actually don't. I like his song from NXT a little bit better. But yes, we got to talk about Braun Breaker and this new faction that is being formed in the WWE as Seth Rollins has created essentially the future of what he sees for the industry. And to talk about this as we introduced him in the last hour, but our boy 24KG is in the building.
Hello.
Good day, good sir.
Hello.
So what do we think from all of this that's being brewed? We had a little bit of a scrum between Sami Zayn and this group yesterday in which he was essentially put on the shelf.
Yeah.
And
off.
Again,
Sami is making it known that this is essentially the same thing as the Bloodline when it started. So is there really a difference between the Bloodline, which is Roman Reigns' group with Paul Heyman, and this group?
First and foremost, good morning to you guys.
Good morning.
Salutations. As your in-studio wrestling analyst, I would have to agree with you and disagree simultaneously. Reasons why. For those fans who are knowledgeable in the ECW days of the first Dangerous Alliance with Paul Heyman, he chose some of his top guys who could talk on the mic, cook in the ring, and that's what we're seeing right now. Now, all those comparisons to the Bloodline in their early beginnings are very similar. Characters different, yes, but premise the same.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that this is going to be probably one of the better factions that Seth Rollins has ever been a part of in his career. He has a slew of different ones that he's been a part of.
He's getting up there like Randy Orton.
Randy
Orton's had a lot of groups.
The Authority. I mean, he really is the new Triple H of this generation of wrestlers, and I think that's exactly what they're trying to build him up to be. Is just that ever prevalent champion that always comes back for the gold at some point with new friends and family, obviously.
Now, with that being said, do you think there'll ever be another wrestler before we're old and gray that reaches the pinnacle of, or close to, of a Triple H, Randy Orton, or John Cena title reigns?
What do you mean? Like the amount of them?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that eventually, I'd like to say Roman, but Roman only has 2 or 3 years left in his career. I think Seth honestly could be that guy. I think Seth Rollins has consistently been that just mainstay on any roster, no matter what show he's on.
20-year career ahead of him.
Yeah, and again, he loves the game that much. Honestly, outside of him, maybe a Dom Mysterio at the end of his career, because again, somebody who's been in the game for 20 years but has essentially just started his career and just started the best parts of his career. So yeah, I think somebody eventually will, because that's how wrestling works. I mean, yes, we have these long-standing legends forever that'll live on, but there's always somebody that comes next that could break that mold.
Now, how do you feel about Sami Zayn's total interaction with these guys through the course of Monday night? Does this lead to Sami coming back at Backlash, or just being written off temporarily right now?
I think it's just being written off temporarily for now until eventually a group is created where Sami most likely is a part of it or leads it.
Survivor Series, perhaps?
I don't know if you go that far, because Survivor Series, I think, is going to be reserved for a Triple H versus Rock situation.
Yeah, I see him cooking. I see him cooking in the storylines and on the interwebs. Let's head on down to our next segment, Chris.
Absolutely. So basically after that, all we really got was you got an interaction between Penta and Chad Gable for what happened at WrestleMania as, El Grande Americano, who everybody believes to be... Everyone believes to be Chad Gable.
Whoa! I'm looking at you, Sparky.
I don't have
nothing.
He's like, that, I know it's Chad Gable.
I personally think the whole Penta thing is going to end with him and Finn teaming up.
Well, you notice they made mention of the Lucha Bros last night.
They did.
That was the first time it was mentioned on WWE television. So I hope we look forward to seeing some type of tag team situation go. But who would be El Americano's partner if you can't have him and Gable in the ring at the same time?
But see, that's kind of why I was thinking is you're going to have one of the boys from the Creed brothers, or we just get Penta against El Grande Americano at Backlash. For the redemption of his brother, who is, well, quote unquote, shelved due to his match against El Grande at WrestleMania.
You got to love the smugness of his character right now.
I wish they would involve the Creed brothers more. I think they're I mean, I can't back talk because the women's match last night was fire.
It cooked.
She was awesome, and
we're talking about. I'm sorry, so we're talking about Rhea and Roxanne. Or are we talking about?
We're
Ivy
talking about
and,
the Ivy with
Stephanie?
the American.
Yes.
If we're going to keep it with the Gable stuff, that was the one, and I think the Creed brothers would be more involved because they're trying to find something to do with those guys, and they are talented.
The only issue I have right now where they're taking the Creed brothers is they're not going to get a shot at those tag titles while a heel has them.
Not anytime soon.
And that's the issue that I have with the WWE is that we love these storylines in which they build, but until you see these guys become good guys or bad guys, whether they're actually going to get legitimate title shots later on down the line, because there has to be a good guy and there has to be a bad guy in all of these stories, and there can't be two of each. You know what I mean?
But I'll tell you right now, when it comes down to pure athleticism, I haven't seen a team much like the Creed brothers that work in such a cohesive tandem in a while, in a long while.
And you can tell they work really, really well together, but it's more about Chad Gable right now than it is about the boys. So do you think that we're going to see this El Grande Americano storyline go pretty or dang near all year? Because right now, from what it looks like, is the fans are actually loving this.
I think if they try to pull something off where you have Chad Gable and El Grande Americano in the same space at the same time, of course, a doppelganger or somebody playing the guy under the mask, it's going to do gangbuster numbers as far as being one of the hottest skits with a lot of views, because WWE backs a lot of their algorithmic, internet, course of study, their ratings through viewership on YouTube. So seeing how his views on their channel kind of spike, it's note to say that the fans are truly loving it.
Some of them. I know we've had other wrestling fans. Adam was one of the that was just anti. He hated it, and he said it reminded him of the Vince McMahon days.
Oh yeah, the JBL, the
but
anti.
Again, I'm not sure if it's necessarily that it should be seen that way, because this isn't Vince McMahon days of like he's doing this in a hateful way.
Well, you still see some Vince-isms going on through the company with certain storylines and characters, and that's going to fade over time. But you can't help but you got to remember, Triple H spent all that time right under the guy. Some things are going to kind of mirror what Vince would do, but not in a obvious or grotesque way to, dampen the storyline or make you lose interest, so to speak.
Right. And I just don't feel like they're attacking anybody's culture with this.
They're not disrespectful anymore.
They looked like they were finding a way to get Gable some wins.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, I was sick and tired of him just being a layover guy.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it is. They're building Chad while at the same time building this entire fun story for people to kind of absorb. So I don't know. I personally don't hate it at all, but I just kind of see why people would be put off by it to a point, I guess.
Yeah,
but
just a little bit. All right, on to our next segment. We had Rhea Ripley and Roxanne Perez. How do you feel about Roxanne? Speaking of jobbing out, taking these L's. On the main roster, she's a natural. She's a blue chipper, most definitely. But we've only seen her in a facilitating capacity where she eats the pin, but she's putting on banger matches. Now, where Roxanne Perez stands right now in the company, I think it's in good holding. She's in the beginning of her career, so she can take these losses. But in the future, I do see her as most definitely a main eventer.
Oh, absolutely. But at this point right now, you're still in the beginning of your career. I think all of these women, including Roxanne, Cora, Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, eventually are all going to go down this kind of a path, because I think that's how the WWE tests these women, or men and women, is you come up to the main roster most of the time, and you're not going to have the career like Braun Breaker had, where you immediately get a title shot because of how much the fans love you.
Well,
it's more going to be based
interrupt
on,
you, but they're also building for Evolution 2 this year, Women's Evolution, when they had the pay-per-view. I think that's why we're seeing a heavy dose of the women's showcasing in their division on mainstream TV right now.
You think that's when we get the tag team with Rhea and Io?
I would believe so. It would cook, it would draw interest, and it would kind of wake up the division a little bit more, because those titles are, oh man.
Well, and this new partnership between Julia and Roxanne Perez has been drawing a lot of eyes, since both of them are mainstays on the NXT roster. Well, maybe both have been called up now. And I think Stephanie Vaquer is on the brink of being called up too. That's why you see her on Raw so much.
Definitely.
But that's why I think, again, getting back to my point, you'll see Roxanne Perez take a lot of these L's, because she's had such a illustrious history of going through and being a champion on NXT and being the only 2-time women's champion on that show.
Oh, she can work.
And that's what I'm saying. And you have all of this gold already, so you have to bring her back down a little bit, especially her character. So you have a reason for her to either go back to being a face at some point, or you have a reason for her to just have a fire in her belly to go after one of these mid-card belts.
I definitely want to put a spotlight on Roxanne Perez's showmanship in the ring, because we've all seen matches where moves break down. And they can lead to a botch, an injury, or something that just doesn't look smooth. Her in-ring generalship and how she recovers or improvises on the fly shows an intelligence of ring awareness and greatness for her character's sake. And I wish her the best in the company.
Absolutely. And then basically that's all we saw on Raw last night that's of talking about, right? I mean, outside of the Sami Zayn thing at the end.
He ate 4 spears.
Yes, he did.
He ate 4 spears. Now, if 1 or 2 could take out Roman for 3 months,
well,
you know how his schedule goes.
There's
a reason written off TV, but I really feel like the way they sold it put an emphasis on how dangerous this new alliance is with Seth, Braun, and a mystery third guy, which we know eventually will come. In the likes of either Austin Theory, Logan Paul, whomever they inject in that, it's going to look good.
I have been thinking about that, and actually we have to talk about that too. I almost forgot. There's now a rivalry brewing between Jey Uso and Logan Paul for that World Heavyweight Championship.
We got a little bit of that last night.
But your theory last week, I've been thinking about it, that Logan Paul might be this mystery third person for this faction. I'm going to have to challenge that now for the simple fact of what we heard yesterday, which is Seth wants to protect the future of wrestling, and a YouTuber is not going to be in that conversation.
But what about a YouTuber that earned everybody's respect after beating AJ Styles?
No, he didn't earn anybody's respect.
Well, by hook or by crook, he still won.
That doesn't matter, though.
I still see Theory.
I think it's Theory.
It's a strong vote for Theory.
And we saw,
let's not rule out. Let's not rule out. Oh, yeah.
American
go right
viewers
ahead.
didn't see the beef between him and his tag team partner in a promo yesterday, which, again, bugs the ever-living out of me.
I get the same way with SmackDown.
Stand it. We also missed a Ludwig Kaiser promo.
What?
Yes.
That could have been probably pretty good. I haven't seen any of the streamers actually
most of these entrances that we don't see are actually streamed during the commercial break, which I hope WWE gets some type of foothold or workaround with this, because we're losing key segments that are integral to the storyline and the development of the match.
I don't think they care, because they're making a ton in advertising.
$40,000 for front row SummerSlam VIP
That's
tickets.
Insane. I haven't even looked at the Money in the Bank because I know it's close.
Hey, you know that guy that threw his leg on SmackDown to Montez Ford?
Yeah, the prosthetic.
You want to know what happened to his other one?
No.
He sold it for front row tickets. Yeah, that's how he got there.
You know, before we get away from it, I think Gunther would be a perfect fit for the future guy too.
Ooh,
that is a good one, honestly. Especially if they want another big heavy
with his morale about the future.
But the ring is sacred.
Honestly, I don't know if Gunther would take a back seat to anybody.
We also have Pat McAfee from ESPN.
I was going to get into this when we brought up Backlash in a second.
He is now scheduled for a match with one of the most brutal wrestlers we have seen in this modern era, the Ring General Gunther.
Now, okay.
It's going to hurt.
You brought this up last week, that this could potentially be the way they write him off for the football season, since he does take a break for the college football season. It's a little early, in my opinion, to be writing him off as Backlash, but it does kind of make sense that maybe this is the way they kind of just write him off for a couple weeks, and maybe let Corey Graves come back up to fill the spot for,
I think
until
they'll
he's
bring in Wade Barrett. But I also want to drop this one on you. What if this is just some type of way to introduce Goldberg's retirement match?
And we finally get Goldberg against Gunther.
Which I'm not looking forward to, but you know, Goldberg's never turned down a payday.
No, and that was teased last year in the which PLE was that?
It was a Raw, I believe, where he was in Atlanta, Georgia.
Was that what it was? I don't know. I remember
he talked to the crowd about how much he loved Bret Hart more than Goldberg.
Yeah.
And then when he was in Canada, he talked about how he loved Goldberg more than Bret Hart. The guy's a genius with this. Come on. Yeah, he's cooking over here.
Well, you play both sides, you get enemies on from every angle, I suppose.
There you go.
But well, at this point, though, that is all you got for Raw. So let's talk about a little bit of Backlash, which will be coming up in 2 weeks. I'm sorry, a week from Saturday is a better way to say. This will be live in St. Louis. where we will see the inevitable, well, I guess you can call it a rematch of Randy Orton against John Cena
for the 15th time.
Again, you say blah, but go through, watch the other matches. I'm telling you, this is arguably one of the WWE's greatest rivalries that has brewed for 25 plus years.
And that's probably why we shouldn't have another version of it.
Nah.
I don't agree. I think that this is exactly what we need, especially, again, in this bizarro world where we now see Randy as the good guy and John as the bad guy. I think this is a unique way to bring back some of the old stuff that one side used to do to the other during all of these matches.
Well, if it looks like Cena's going to pull it off either way. So
Definitely.
I just wonder how the spin my interest is more of how they're going to spin it on how Cena can pull this off.
Somebody's going to interfere.
Someone's going to interfere, but
Definitely.
who?
I don't know. But see, if it's anybody who interferes, it would have to be either Travis Scott or The Rock. Unless there is another member of this.
Braun coming out saying if he could pick anyone to spear it, it would be Travis Scott.
Yeah, that was kind of funny.
But no, I'm just going back
love to see that.
To Backlash. I mean, you guys grew up and watched the Cena and the Orton. At this point of time of where wrestling is, it just doesn't. It looks.
Well, one thing I want to speak on, seeing as how we're 2 weeks outside of the WrestleMania hype, you notice there's a kind of stillness in the crowd last night. It feels like the audience, fans especially, are a little exhausted on the total bombardment of how much wrestling we got in such a short amount of time. Now, this usually happens with the product on the road to SummerSlam, Backlash, these mid-grade pay-per-views that have kind of blown up over the years to become real prominent PLEs. I feel like since the hype has died down, this is going to be a key match that draws interest from a fan region of people who are, older and younger. A lot of people didn't get to see these series of matches between John Cena and Randy Orton throughout the years. So we're going to rekindle that and expect to see a lot of the same moves or spots throughout all of their highlights. Now, before we get to the end of this, just let me know when we're wrapping up. I do have a question to ask you guys.
No, you can ask it right now if you want. We got plenty of time.
Okay, so let's just get all the wrestling things out of the way first.
I think SmackDown is falling apart.
Does concern wrestling, but
you think SmackDown's falling apart?
I was telling him on Monday, I was just bored out of my mind with SmackDown.
Okay, I will say that there are some parts that are lacking, but that ladder match, that tag team ladder match, should have been on the WrestleMania card. Now, I'm going to harp on this a little bit more. What we seen, you could tell everybody had their WrestleMania gear on. That match was supposed to be on WrestleMania. Every team gave it everything that they had, sold incredibly for each other. I'm glad the Street Profits retained, but golly, some of those spots were dangerous. Immensely dangerous. This is why we have Kevin Owens with a neck injury right now because of ladders in matches. So I'm glad to see that they were really safe about it, but also not too safe about it. They suspend the belief that they are putting their bodies on the line, their lives on the line. Kudos for the entertainment. But Jesus, some of those spots, I mean, them guys are probably still feeling it right now.
Angelo's spear from off of the ladder onto a table was pretty cool.
Come on, man. That was a nice, that was a throwback move to Edge and the Hardys. Oh my goodness.
And it was very well done, although I did fear for him a little bit because he came down directly on his knees. And I was like, ooh, that's a good way to blow your knee out.
Reminded me of Braun Breaker a little bit. I mean, Bronson Reed a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. And that's what kind of scares me about some of those spots because it gets a little too dangerous at points. And I mean, I know me and you have had our comments when it comes to AEW and them doing some crazy spots.
Did you see what happened this weekend with TNA?
I have not watched much of TNA.
A senton 450 splash onto a litany of wrestlers at the bottom that really, if it wasn't for AJ Francis saving this guy, he probably would have face busted on the concrete.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. Again, everybody's doing something crazy to get themselves noticed, and especially on the internet. And I think I did actually see that. Now that you brought that up, I think I have seen a clip of that.
It's an X Division match. It was horrific, but I'm glad that guy's all right.
Again, I don't know about SmackDown falling apart. I do think
that just not what I'm used to on a Friday night SmackDown.
Something a little bit more with a little bit more electricity to it.
I think you might be right. I think maybe it's just
the hype died down.
The post after WrestleMania. I mean, they threw everything in the kitchen sink at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
and I could see it. And I almost thought when he told me that Backlash is next Saturday, I'm like, really?
Yeah,
like that kind of seems rushed and put together.
Think of it like a meal. Some people can handle a buffet. Some people can handle a second dessert. It's all about pretty much how you're going to feel afterwards.
But if you've watched,
it's going to make some people sick.
It does.
If you watch the last 2 Raws and the SmackDown, it kind of just, okay, let's shuffle it up and everything, just throw everything together.
You can see and feel a fast forwarding of storylines. I feel like that they wanted to put in place months ago, but because of how the administration was changing hands and things that were going on, they kind of had to slow it down and just focus on certain storylines, certain characters that were really moving the product.
Right.
Now we can put all these pieces in between with these characters and storylines that matter, like Karrion Kross, who basically has a dot in every timestamp over the last 2 years of everybody's storyline where they've risen and fallen at, which I can't wait to see play out.
And I was thinking about this too when I was watching the Rusev promo that we got.
Yes, we got an ad for Rusev Machka.
And again, he's coming in to be, it seems like the Liberator, or at least the Liberator storyline. The Redeemer, storyline that we saw him in with AEW, but this is going to obviously be better. Do you think that there's going to be some sort of partnership between him and Karrion at some point?
I would hope so, because honestly, if that's the case, then you could see this kind of overlapping with Malachi Black's return, because nobody's brand exclusive right now.
No, at the moment, because I mean, this season just started, so we haven't had a draft.
I don't think we're going to get one. If they do, it's going to be done differently.
Yeah, we haven't gotten a draft since, I believe, last year or the year before. But usually we'd get what they call the WWE draft, which is where they would switch up each show's rosters and flip-flop some of the superstars to be mainstays on different shows.
Now, to break kayfabe, let's talk about the ramifications that also caused the networks and executives that wanted certain stars on their network. When you had USA and Fox arguing over, we're not getting enough Roman Reigns, we're getting too much Seth Rollins, we don't have a world title, we need an exclusive title to the brand of which we're viewing on. This is one of the reasons why I think they're probably going to start stepping away from the draft in the future.
Why do you think that? Just because
of those problems? Yes, but now since we're consolidated on Netflix, USA is the only brand that still airs a WWE product, and NBC, but they're not. Yes, but now that we don't have it split between 2 entities or companies, we can kind of just jump everybody around and move them how they want to. As we seen last night, Adam Pearce, who is the general manager for Raw, kayfabe, could not make it, probably due to some real-life travel reasons. So they had Nick Aldis step in, which makes sense storyline-wise, because you have to have an authority figure on the show. Now, raising Gunther's suspension and the whole Pat McAfee thing, I get it. There was more filler than killer in the show, but sometimes you get a show like that, which is necessary for people to maybe tune in or develop a storyline for next week.
And then real quick, since you brought up Nick Aldis, we also heard that Liv Morgan will have to step away for a while because she's filming a movie.
Yes. Congrats to Liv. She's doing her thing, man.
Do we think, I mean, this has to be a horror movie, right?
I would hope so. I would hope so.
It has to be. I mean, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. It has to be a horror movie.
I believe she was in the Chucky film or
the series. Yes. She was in the Chucky series for a quick second. As she gets murdered, I think, in the beginning of the second season.
Most pretty blonde girls do in the Chucky series.
Well, that's all she wanted to do. She was very adamant about that. She's like, I just want to be killed by Chucky. That's it.
You've mentioned it over the year, that she's perfect for it, especially when she takes a hit or a bad.
She sells.
She plays it. She sells it. But there was another thing that I saw breaking over the last 24 hours is, Naomi talking about, this is probably it.
For her.
She wants to settle down, have a family. And, I another thing which I'll throw out is Uso. Last night, not doing the 20-minute intro.
Yeah,
and
they're wrapping it up. They're wrapping it up.
He was like, good, man, because I like this attitude that he has with him now.
Well, that, and it's like, when you do the 20-minute intro every single time, fans get really bored out of it.
Save that for the big PLEs, for the overseas crowd, because, things come back from the overseas audiences, like the whole singing right now, that it'll be popular till about SummerSlam, and then they'll be on something new. Audiences are very finicky, very fickle sometimes. We seen that last night because it was quiet until Seth came out.
Did you see when Seth brought up, I know a few of you will chant CM Punk, and it went quiet for a while.
Like,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a little stale, especially when that person isn't in the building. We still got some OTC chants, but nonetheless, Seth Rollins is really positioning himself as the guy, which is reflecting of the guys that he talked about. So it's a great irony in the storyline that I'm seeing reflected upon him through Sami Zayn, who unfortunately got assaulted and written off. But hey, it happens. It's WWE. People.
It was good to see JD back too.
Yeah, it was.
JD
he had a hell of a match.
McBeast right there.
The Iron Lung.
Yes.
I swear. And to have a match against the team that injured, or the injury happened in, I shouldn't say injured him, because that's not what happened at all.
Yeah.
But to go up against the same guys again, and they do that a lot.
Yes, it's like, facing your fear. You fall off a bike, get back on the bike, you'll be all right.
And when you face the same team, it just kind of tells you, okay, I can still do this. That match was just a one-off, and it's not going to happen.
You can see the War Raiders were, I'm not saying too cautious, but they were very careful as far as how they moved. And those are big guys. Now, what I got a kick out of also, but I found kind of cheap, the way the New Day was trying to generate heat during the commentary by calling Ivar fat. The guy's a 400-pound athlete. I haven't seen a 400 guy hit a backflip drug-free in my life.
Right.
I say that again, okay? Just on TV in front of people. To have that kind of athleticism, he does not need to be made fun of. But I see where the heat was going. But nonetheless, he's hitting cartwheels, backflips, awesome moonsaults. I got to give it up to the War Raiders.
Absolutely. He's an athlete in himself. And he trains most of these people, too.
Yes.
He's one of the WWE's best trainers. So
come on. And
you got to give him respect.
Recovered from a neck fusion
neck
neck fusion surgery. That's nothing to play with.
Well, from Friday's SmackDown to last night's Raw, is what was your favorite part? What you took out of it?
Okay,
as we wrap up this segment.
I'm gonna go with the tag ladder match for SmackDown.
Yeah,
that was the highlight of that show. Raw. You know what? If I was going to give it a grade, I would give it a high C. High C. There was some low points, more low points than high points, but everything was for the benefit of the storylines moving along with the characters. So overall, I would give both shows, and the hype wearing down from WrestleMania, the product grade would be about a B-.
A passing grade.
It's a passing grade.
I personally,
we'll say passing grade.
I enjoyed the Becky Lyra.
Yes,
this feud is going to get that belt off.
It's getting
Lyra.
better.
Yes, but it's also showing Lyra is a character worth investing in without the belt.
Totally different. She didn't come out with the feathers and all that. She looked like a grown woman.
Yes, whoever her stylist was, they said, look, let's drop this and get with the grown-up stuff.
Exactly.
Cool, great. It was a great look. I feel more comfortable with watching her on TV other than looking like I'm watching an episode of Blue's Clues.
Exactly. And I will say, as a fan, not as a host, but as a fan, I'm catching myself going, woo.
Oh, wow.
So
I wonder how Charlotte feels about that.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not that much.
I love Becky, but she's growing on me.
All right, guys. The question that I wanted to ask.
Oh, true.
That's been going around the internet, tons of circulation. 100 men versus one silverback gorilla. Hey, I gotta know. I gotta know. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a thesis. Everybody's a genius when it comes to combat sports, especially with 100 guys and one gorilla.
No weaponry, right?
No weaponry. No.
I'm not taking the 100 people. I'm taking the gorilla.
Yeah, I'm taking the gorilla.
I'm taking the gorilla.
If it's hand to hand, I'm taking the gorilla.
I think when the first 30 guys die, or get an arm ripped off or slung around like a bag of ice,
there's a lot of fear that's going to come with that.
The other aren't going to feel as confident.
No.
Well,
now, and again,
now what if you had 100 Brock Lesnar's? Still, no, that's a gorilla.
No, actually, 100 Brock Lesnar's is a whole different conversation. But again, it's like, I don't know. Every time I hear this question, because I've heard it a million times now on the internet, they bring up a really good point. When you're in a group of people and something crazy is happening at the center of it,
fear is very
How
contagious.
many people are on the outside just wondering what's going on?
Yeah.
And not doing a dang thing. We're talking about as if there's going to be 100 people piling on a gorilla. No, this is most likely going to be 2 or 3 guys trying to fist fight a gorilla while the gorilla rips them apart and another guy subs in.
Or if anybody dog piles the gorilla, everybody under that dog pile is pretty much dead no matter.
So at this point, all you could hope for is just you hope the gorilla gets tired of killing you.
I would lay down somewhere and play sleep. I know it's not a bear, but
yeah, that's also a rumor.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that either. That doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Well, our boy Dan is running a few minutes late, so that opens up a question I was going to throw at you, and I forgot to even bring it up. But this outside of WWE, the video that popped up yesterday with Bischoff and Hulk Hogan.
Oh my Lord. Okay, somebody grab their uncle.
So is this they're promoting some podcast?
Okay,
is the third person Nash?
Let me just paint a picture for you.
And just before you do that, congratulations, we do have a winner. From
fantastic.
our trivia. It is Entertainment and Sports Programming Network.
There we go.
Proud of you.
This is the first week.
We'll hook you up.
Congratulations, we got you.
We'll
go ahead. Bischoff, Hogan. They released a kind of a short promo,
NWO style. You ever, when you were a kid or a teenager, stumbled in the garage and found your uncle or your dad chilling with his friends, drinking beer, and you're like, "What the hell are you guys laughing about?" That's what that reminded me of. Out of touch, out of date, elder humor. That was, I get it. You guys are prominent in the business, but I have no idea why you're laughing. Nonetheless, why you're even back. You've made all the money. You've gone over on everybody. You've done good and bad and great business, historical matches. You've done everything. So unless they're bringing Vince McMahon in to start a new company, which has been rumored, let's just get ready for a big steaming pile of Stanley's dung right there.
Well, but again,
like Hogan's beer.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. Is you notice WWE
Hogan's
still
beer
has
like
a
a dirty
deal with
peach.
them because American Made has a whole beer commercial with the American, or what is it called?
Hogan?
First American Beer, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Like Only American Beer, whatever the heck Hogan's beer is called. I would assume that
I call
everybody,
it crap water.
I would just hope everybody would
Bowel
understand
flush.
how we feel about Hulk Hogan based on how he was treated the last time he was shown in front of a WWE fan base.
When I was a child, I used to love Hulk Hogan. Then I became an adult.
See, I never really got it.
And I tend to see these things on the internet, like we all have seen over the years, that we do not have to mention that involved Hulk Hogan. And that dissipated rather quickly.
Honestly, a controversial topic to end it.
Yeah.
I always thought Hulk Hogan was overrated.
Look, I'm taking the gorilla over Hulk Hogan. I just want to
Yes.
throw that
I
out
never
there.
saw Hulk Hogan as that great wrestler that was like, honestly, I saw Bret Hart and Andre the Giant as bigger names than Hulk Hogan was when I was growing up, but that's just me.
Well, I was an Ultimate Warrior guy when
There you go.
with that time, and then The Undertaker was born. So
Yes,
there you go.
luckily I got through that without having, yellow trunks or whatever. But my question is one, I've seen the rumors, and they're kind of both in back. It's
He's
either
as tan as
a
piece of
podcast.
bacon now.
There's rumors that there was a podcast that they're going to do with the three of them, which is the third would be Kevin Nash, or it is, like you said, just old guys that are bored trying to promote some type
Stick
of old
to a
beer.
podcast. A podcast would be fantastic with those three. But Eric Bischoff, I swear, if you create some sort of wrestling thing with these two, I lose all respect.
I'm
for
having
you.
traumatic flashbacks from when they were running TNA.
Yeah,
Impact.
exactly. Like we're gonna get just the 90-year-old wrestlers wanting to come back for one final match with each other.
I'm seeing like WrestleMania 9 all over again with Bret Hart. Just, go in there, get him. And he's like, "You piece of crap."
Well, we appreciate it, brother. We'll see you next week, and that'll pretty much be a setup for Backlash.
Yes,
indeed.
That is a week from Saturday. KG, thank you for taking the time out, and congratulations to our listeners. There was 3 people that said, "I have no idea. Good job. Thanks."
Really?
So I mean, I had to look it up this morning because I was like, let me see if I double check this.
If you're
right.
my age, you've only heard it known as ESPN.
Yeah.
You've never been known. You've never heard it as the acronym. I can promise you that.
But we'll have Dan Betts ahead of his show tonight at the Nile Theater with Tom Green.
Oh yeah,
coming up right here at Early Bird Special 101.1 FM, 12:30 a.m. forgot you were going to play this. Every time I think of Tom Green, that's exactly what I go to.
See, again, all I think when I hear Tom, or when I think of Tom Green is his entire thing, road trip, snake, and the net. It's hilarious. Every time I see it. Welcome back to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. We have a very special guest in the building. Dan Betts is back with us as we await the Tom Green show tonight at the Nile Theater. What's going on, brother?
I too await the Tom Green show at the Nile Theater tonight. What's going on is I'm tired. I told you I confided in you off the airwaves.
I apologize.
That I didn't even brush my teeth before getting here today.
Which is why he's currently looking at the glass and not at me.
Yeah, so I don't want it to go that direction. Well, we're treating this like COVID rules back in the day, 6 feet.
The Tom Green show is tonight at the Nile Theater. I believe it starts at 7:30. Tickets are still available at bakersfieldlive.com.
Indeed. Looking forward to it.
Is this the first time at the Nile?
This is going to be stinky. This
we don't have to deal with it, so it's a good thing.
We'll leave a note for Greg Kerr.
Do you guys like the person after you? Should I just really stink it up in here?
No, have you performed at the Nile before?
No, this will be my first time there, man.
I haven't been to the Nile since growing up, but since Spindler and all the boys over at the Fox cleaned it up and turned it into a real venue.
It's exciting. I was there the day that the Fox Theater Foundation officially took ownership of it. I popped champagne with Maddie, the executive director over there, and then we crawled through the bowels of the theater, literally like under the theater, down an old elevator shaft or whatever it was.
That's the best part of being downtown. No, there is some cool stuff
was super
downtown.
Cool.
Like growing up, my dad had a recording studio below Front Porch, and it was like it was almost like a bomb safe zone type area where you would walk in and there was just memories and memories of old bands that used to rock out down there. And there was like notes from people that wrote over in the 70s and the 80s. It's cool stuff, especially like the old Woolworths building. There's some crazy stuff over at the Woolworths building. Our neighbors told us, a lot of ghosts and try to creep us out, but there's a lot of cool stuff going on downtown. Tyson had said, the Well is now moving over to the Rabobank Theater.
Yes, yeah.
That's the new location.
That's what we've kind of fell back on. I mean, we tried to get teaser pleasers.
Yeah,
that would have been a pull right there.
We just
not the exotic kitty there.
We couldn't get the glitter out of the carpets, and so the health inspector wouldn't pass.
So what is the name of the other one? Because I know there's the weekday shows and the open mics that are still going on
over at Eva's.
Yeah,
Eva's in the east lobby of the historic Bakersfield Fox Theater. Eva's is their little event space, like I said, in that east lobby. And I think they thought it would seat maybe 80, 90, and I think we put 100 in there.
Nice.
For seating. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a fun, intimate room, and it's a great spot to kind of rehome our open mics, keep the ring rust at bay for the comics, and start whetting the appetite for folks for comedy in downtown Bakersfield. And yeah, like I said, it's a gorgeous room. It's intimate. It's fun. It's got a bit of a comedy club feel to it. It's also got almost kind of a 1920s feel to it. It's really cool. So yeah, we have 3 open mics every week there, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I say every week, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, except not this Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
No.
No. So we're coming into their space, so we're subject to what they've got going on, and the room is being used for other purposes on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we decided to kill the Thursday open mic because we've got David Lucas at the Nile.
That's what I was just going to ask
that night.
So David Lucas is live this Thursday, and that one's at the Nile Theater as well?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's one that we had scheduled. I think this would be David's 3rd time back at the Well. And since obviously you know some of the background story, but because we decided to move the club so fast and kind of jump on an opportunity, we're rehoming some of the shows. So David Lucas is going to the Nile. I think Jesse Jetski Johnson will go to the Nile. Tony Rock will go to the Nile, Chris Rock's brother.
That'd be a fun show.
Yeah, Hans Kim, I'm hoping will be open by the time that show comes back, and so I'm hoping to do that at our Club, and Cactus Tate, another great up and coming comic.
Nice.
I'm glad that you knew her.
Oh, yeah.
She's selling like hotcakes too, and she's going to go over to Tumblr. So that'll be our second
Right
show
on.
over Tumblr.
We had Chris Flail on last week, which is a funny dude. And he was promoting his Tumblr show last Friday. I had a lot of response from listeners that went out to the show, and it was the first time they'd seen Chris. He is one of the most genuine, funny dudes. Like, you can just sit and have a conversation, and you kind of see that in his shows. Like, at first, when I was seeing his Instagram videos, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I met him. I was like, dude, this is a genuine funny.
Was that your first time meeting him?
We talked when we had talked about the podcast. Remember, we had met up with the a few times.
That's right.
So me and Chris kind of got in contact afterwards, and we're gonna, the early bird special is also, unofficial sponsor of local comedy here in town. So we're going to continue to bring in these open mics and headliners, and as well as the one and the only Dan Betts.
You're the best, and I like the way you said that. And the new venue, by the way, will have a podcasting studio, I believe, in it as well. So finally, officially, we had been using the green room at the club, but setting up and tearing down equipment was never really ideal. And I'm both busy and lazy, so the more convenient I can make it, right? Where
So
I can just like
you didn't
walk
sell
in.
that Roadcaster?
No, I got everything. I got the road. Steven helped hook me up with all of our equipment, and I'm just too stupid to figure out how to use it, and too lazy to set it all up and tear it down.
Tear it down is the
too
pain.
busy to plan ahead.
Cocktail to have to deal with.
I know, it's like, never mind.
So let me know, or the listeners, who is David Lucas?
David Lucas is one of the Kill Tony guys. I think he was one of the earlier guys to kind of go out to Austin, go over to the Comedy Mothership. I think he's recently back in LA, back at the Comedy Store, kind of a roast comic, does kind of some crowd work. I know that one of the times he was at the club, maybe even both, I can't remember, brought some of the audience up on stage and just roasted people. Like, people literally lined up along the ramp to the stage at the old venue.
That's awesome.
And went up and just got the crap roasted out of him. So I imagine it'll be more of the same. We pushed it over to the Nile just last Friday, and tickets are already selling like hotcakes. So really excited for that one, and to be able to be not only performing on stage at the Nile, my first time ever, tonight, I would say this Tuesday. This is how tired I am. Tonight with a legend, Tom Green, and then to be promoting my first show at the Nile 2 days later is pretty cool.
That's fun.
Real quick question for you, because I'm just curious about this. We brought up Chris Flail and how much like he's kind of family friendly comedy, and then obviously David's a completely different kind. Which one is easier, you would say, to kind of sell for promote around Bakersfield? Is it more the family friendly stuff that sells quicker, or is it more like the roast comedy that sells quicker?
Great question. I think roast comedy is probably surging. I think obviously there's a great place for clean comedy, squeaky clean comedy, rated G,
right?
Family friendly comedy. There's a market for that, but I think there's also a lot of things for folks to do in that sort of demographic, right? If you've got kids or there's other things to do, whereas like roast comedy seems to be surging. And I think even in general, again, there's certainly a place for clean comedy always. I just don't think it has the same necessity that it used to have. Like when comics to make it was like, I got to have a clean 5 minutes to do Johnny Carson. And now you got guys that are like, I don't need to be clean at all. I can put it on YouTube or Instagram, and the people that want to see it will go gobble it up.
Right,
so I think people are truly gobbling up comedy right now. I hope it's not a bubble that's going to pop in the near future. It's definitely within Bakersfield. I'm starting to see a bit of an oversaturation, I think, where restaurants are doing it, and breweries have been in on the game. Breweries, wineries have been in on the comedy game for a few years now. I think when they figured out
that's a perfect fit.
Yeah, the breweries figured out we've got all this extra space. What do we do with it? And then comics figured out, well, if I'm having a hard time getting into clubs, and you have these breweries that have the space to do it. So they've been in on it for a while, but seeing even like restaurants do it in other places, it's like, I hope that folks at least understand, if you're going to go out and see comedy, go see good comedy.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we come in, as we go, well, we do it best. So you could certainly go and, you could get, a hot dog at an Italian restaurant, but I would
Get
recommend the
a burger at Taco
lasagna.
Bell.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
right.
it's the same thing. I think growing over the years with the Well, being the first full-time comedy club here in town, there was people, whether it was that they liked the family stuff, they were looking for the family-friendly type comic, or they were the younger that wanted the raunchy, and they wanted. I mean, I've been to both sides of the show, and I've seen the guy up front that wants it, that's asking for it, and then I have people that I work with that want to take their wives out to a date night and go to a comedy show without having to be worried about getting
Being
rolled
roasted,
up about his wife or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's kind of cool to see the growth and seeing that you guys accommodate to both sides. So I mean, there's plenty of great comedians here in town, and what you guys are bringing here in town. But if they want to get tickets for these, so now that you're doing shows at different venues for a temporary time, do they still go to the wellcomedyclub.com to get their tickets? Or do they go to whether it's Timblr or Nile or whatever?
They can all the Tumblr shows will still sell the tickets on our platforms. You go to our website. Nile shows, you can go straight to the Nile's website to buy your tickets there, or you could still go to our website and you'll find the ticket link in the description of the show there as well. So it's funny you say that, and I got work to do because I announced where some of these shows are going just now, but I haven't actually moved them physically and done some of the work. In fact, I think
we got breaking news on EBS.
I actually have to reach out to an agent right after this and be like, hey, by the way,
I told everybody. So you got to start moving some. You got to start moving some people.
Yeah, I got to resubmit a couple.
Well, I'm looking forward to. I don't have my son this Thursday, so maybe I will get to go see the David Lucas.
What do you mean maybe?
I like the.
What do you mean maybe?
When the Nile was across the street or down the street, it was easy. I could be like, babe, I'll be back in a couple hours. Now, I have to stay here or work late at Moneywise and then just go downtown. So here in a couple months, when we're downtown as well, it'll be like the old days where I could just walk down the street and Uber my ass home.
Sure. Anything I can do to be more convenient for you to come out to a show.
How
about this?
That's a real BFF right there.
On Thursday, you be at David Lucas or find yourself a new best friend. Do you understand me?
Damn.
You be
Ouch.
there
I'm
or
gonna
you
take my
lose
shirt
my
off
number.
now.
There is some real hatred behind those words right now.
Well,
you dragged him out here at 8:30 in the morning to tell him
I
you're
went
not
to the
gonna be at
Well
his comedy
before it
show.
was a comedy club. How about that?
Oh, look at this guy.
The Well hipster.
Yeah, he's
Sparky.
telling me about the people he dated before me now. Real good.
Smell these fingers,
try that out
baby.
with your girl. See how that works out.
Smell these fingers.
Tell her she's not the first pilgrim to land on Plymouth Rock. See how that goes for you.
We also talk sports, and I know you're a Bears fan.
Indeed.
Post draft.
Indeed.
What do you think?
I'm really excited about this team. I think my stepson loves to be kind of a trash talker, and
who does he like?
He likes Chargers.
Oh gosh.
Wait.
Where's all these Charger fans coming
from?
No,
not that's fine. He could be a Charger fan. How could a Charger fan give anybody grief right now?
Well, he's a kid. He doesn't know any better. You know what I mean? It's like
fair,
he's a knucklehead. I haven't hit him enough, and so yeah,
you haven't reached that level.
So he's been talking trash about the Bears for years, and I was explaining like what a rebuild is. Like it's like for the last couple of years, like we're not really trying to win a whole lot here. We're trying to get some draft picks. You're not going to do much with this team. This isn't a playoffs team, But now, excuse me, Ben Johnson from Detroit, if you didn't know, by the way, used to be a tight end coach. Picked up Loveland, which I think is going to turn out to be a great tight end. So we're going to run two of them. Great wide receiver core right there. We got great running backs. I think we've got our franchise QB. Beefed up the O-line to protect him in the offseason.
I wish Miami would do that.
I think the Bears have been making, Miami better put a tank out on the field.
No, you'd rather sacrifice your quarterback to the odds.
Or old Captain Concussion over there better sit down. They better put a balloon on his head.
All these stuff I've heard for years, but I wish Miami would do exactly what you guys did, because Chicago went and addressed the offensive line with some vets and some big boys, and Miami for some reason thinks, okay, well, Tua could throw the ball in a half a second. We don't need to block anybody.
Yeah. Plus, at this point, he's got like scar tissue on his brain, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, right.
He
can't lose any more brain cells, right?
That's right. The gray matter up inside that dude's nugget.
What was the big boy from Varsity Blues that had all the concussions?
Oh yeah,
the big cowboy.
Big cowboy.
What was his name?
I could not remember, but that's all I think.
Thanks
about
for bringing that up. And now I got to
scratch your brain around that one.
Something in your head before
Someone
you
text
leave.
that in real quick before we get out of here, so we don't die.
Well, I will give some love to the Cavs, which you'll never hear me do, but I loved seeing the Cavs sweep the Heat and just spank them, because the Bulls obviously can't multiple years in a row, where the Heat just have our number. And hopefully that the Bulls will do the same and get some veterans in there, get at least some scorers, because they're one or two pieces away from being a real playoff team, not a play-in team.
Sure.
Well, since there's 2 on the board right now, who would you rather have, Kevin Durant or Giannis?
Giannis, 100%.
Yeah.
Durant is just one of those girls you pass around with your homies. Like we don't want KD.
Homie hopping now?
Yeah, we don't want that. I know that girl. And Veronica, I'm not talking about you, but I am.
There's
Wow,
no way
even
that's not a
name
real
dropped
name.
one.
There's no way that's not a real name.
She's not the waitress at Red Lobster.
Oh, Lord, man.
Steven's firing on all cylinders
We're
today.
getting canceled today.
No, just
Keep
a big
going.
shout out.
We got 2. No, don't plug the
No,
shows.
yeah,
Keep
don't
going.
stop. What we got now?
Don't plug the shows. I'll sell the tickets. I'll figure it out. Talk about Veronica really quick.
No, we're done with her. As
Are
we
we?
all were. We all were at one
Wow.
point.
There seems to be a little salt left over
Yeah.
in the wound in that one.
I still love you,
A
Ghostface.
Red Lobster waitress talking about the snapper.
No, I actually love fish. I just don't like to go to Red Lobster.
Fair enough. All right, plug the shows.
All
Plug the shows
right.
before we
You
get
can
out.
see Dan Betts at the Nile Theater tonight as he is it just you and Tom?
Just me and Tom, man. Just me and my old homie.
Nice. So are you getting like a 5-minute set? Or are you
No,
getting
I'm
a real
doing 20
set?
tonight.
Oh, nice. So you'll see Dan Betts tonight at the Nile Theater. Get your tickets. It's bakersfieldlive.com. And if you want to join me Thursday, David Lucas at the Nile Theater, get your tickets at the same website.
Yes, same website. Or you can go to our, thewellcomedyclub.com, find your tickets there. And you know where we're going, right? 18th Street. We're going to be downtown soon.
Oh,
Have you
it
seen the
is
location?
18th Street. It is. I
Yeah,
didn't
it
know
is.
if we could talk about it
Yeah,
yet.
we can talk about it. Yeah.
You tell me with 20 seconds left in the show.
Well, of course.
We're actually going where
Leave 'em
Fish
watching.
Lips used to be, which is where one of the
Nice.
first comedy open mics in town was. So
From
kind of
B
full
Writers
circle.
to Fish Lips.
That's right.
Right on. The Well Comedy Club. Check them out, thewellcomedyclub.com. Thank you, Dan. We'll see you tonight. This is the Early Bird Special. Join us tomorrow live, 7 to 9 a.m., 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM.